What's up, you guys? Your boy, Ben Bahari here, represent Bahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the entire football community in this case, though, guys. So I hope y'all have been having a good day so far. Hope y'all have been staying safe during this whole pandemic, though, guys. We're going to get down to business here, so I wanted to discuss something that happened a couple of days ago, but I just didn't have the time to do it. But I'm actually going to pretty much talk about this now since we're on the topic here. Actually, it was actually last week, I should say. But basically, To pretty much put out the headlines to pretty much say that he will never visit the Pro Football Hall of Fame after being snubbed out of the first ballot. You know what I'm saying? He pretty much referenced to the fact that he was pretty much snubbed out of the first ballot. He should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he got in on, was it the second or third ballot? So, you know, we all remembered how he pretty much said he didn't want to attend his Hall of Fame induction, and pretty much did it his own Hall of Fame induction out of his alma mater, Chattanooga. And I pretty much said back then, what I still stand today, that T.O. actually did the right thing in not attending the Pro Football Hall of Fame because of the fact that the media pretty much crapped on him throughout his entire football career. All right, but he pretty much talked about how the wide style, how the resume of the wide receiver continuously keeps changing in the Pro Football Hall of Fame voting process. You talk about how you got to have a level of productivity. You have to dominate your field, and you cannot have any locker room discussions around it. And constantly, every single time that those things come up, a lot of receivers, eventually get left out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. All right, To should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer off of a couple of stats, okay? Think about this for a moment. In his first 9 years of the National Football League, in his first 9 seasons, he accumulated 669 receptions, 9,772 yards, and 95 touchdowns. All right? Now, there are only three other guys that had a little bit more numbers in terms of receptions and receiving yards, and those guys are Reggie Wayne, who had Reggie Wayne had about 676, receptions, 9,393 yards, and 63 touchdowns, which are basically undervalued with T.O. But the other two guys that had more yards and that also touchdowns, basically were Calvin Johnson and Torry Holt. All right, and you can go look up the numbers yourself. But the thing that really irked me about the whole voting process is that how these voters still resented T.O. on the way that they so-called treated him. When at the same time, the media pretty much crapped on T.O. throughout his entire football career because they did not like how he was a showman on the field and basically how he showed up to the media off the field. All right, this was a man that committed no crimes in football. He wasn't arrested for anything. He was actually a modeled citizen. All right, but they didn't like him because he was basically a kind of person that was always a confident wide receiver and a showman, and it rubbed a lot of people off the wrong way. All right, which explains one of the reasons why he was basically traded so much. But the point is this, though, guys. Listen, I am so sick and tired of Hall of Fames always changing criterias when it comes to particular players that they don't like. Look what's going on in baseball right now. You got Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds, two of the greatest players of their respective positions. They're still waiting for their inductions for the Hall of Fame, and their time is almost up. All right, Barry Bonds is about to enter his ninth or 10th attempt, his final attempt to get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. I don't know about Clemens. I think it's maybe 7th or 8th. I checked, but I'm not sure specifically. You can let me know in the comment section below. But these guys had to wait this long to get into to basically hear their names in the Hall of Fame, and their time is almost up. And why is that? Because one, the acquisition of steroids, but also about their outside reputation too. All right, it's ridiculous. All right, there are a lot of horrible people that are actually in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. All right, there have been a lot of questionable names that you can pretty much point to a finger. It's like, I don't know if he belongs in the Hall of Fame. All right, Tio should have been in on the first ballot. And we know why he was not in on the first ballot. Is because they did not like, all the stuff that he was off the field, and basically didn't like the fact that he was brash and all that other stuff. And more importantly, we also have to forget, during that magical season when he was in Philadelphia, all right, remember, he broke his leg towards the end of the regular season. but he basically rehealed himself, rebuilt himself on time for the Super Bowl, and played his heart out in one of the greatest performances that he ever had in his entire career. You understand what I'm saying? So let me pull up the stat line of Super Bowl 39. All right. This was basically Super Bowl 39 when the Philadelphia Eagles made it all the way to the Super Bowl after what, 4 attempts? What is it? 3 or 4 attempts in the NFC title game that they did not get in. T.O. had 9 receptions and 122 yards, and he was targeted 14 times. All right. This man balled out in the biggest game. He balled out on one leg. Now imagine if he had 2 legs. All right. Philadelphia could have beaten the Patriots that year and probably won the Super Bowl. All right. If it wasn't for Dominic McNabb throwing up all over the field and being shell shocked in his first Super Bowl appearance, maybe they would have won the title. But that's hindsight 30-30. But the point is this, all right? I don't blame T.O. for feeling this way because the media always like to play these double standard games a lot when it comes to the athletes that they don't like or they just don't favor. All right, especially when it comes to the Hall of Fame, voting process. Harry Carson had to wait at least 13 to 15 years until his name got into the Hall of Fame. Art Monk, who's one of the greatest wide receivers in his position. Think about this for a moment. This was a guy that literally had to wait until 2008. 2008 for his name to be in the Hall of Fame. And he was the first receiver in NFL history to reach over 900 career receptions. All right? This is a guy that literally was one of the greatest third down receivers in the history of the National Football League. And he had to wait till 2008 to hear his name in the Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous how these writers can always judge upon a player based on either just what in their eyes marginal stats or outside the field problems because we didn't like him because he was a jerk to us. See, this is why I always feel like that players, great players, or say Hall of Famers and Hall of Fame coaches should be the ones voting people into the Hall of Fame, not writers, because there's going to be instances where there's going to be a lot of writers that are not going to be familiar or that don't have good knowledge or good concept of football that are going to leave a lot of noticeable names out of the Hall of Fame. All right. I'm still waiting for the day when Rondé Barber gets into the Hall of Fame because he's one of the greatest nickel corners in the history of the National Football League. And he's had to wait, let's say 1 or 2 years for his name to get into the Hall of Fame. I'm still waiting on him. But my point is this. All right. I've always been on T.O.'s side when it comes to these kind of things. He was not always a perfect person and he's made his mistakes. Absolutely. But for the media to keep running amok on this dude and basically call him team obliterator, as like Skip Bayless likes to call him and all that, it's ridiculous. T.O. is not the reason why all those teams broke apart. All right? It's the organizations that made those decisions to make those cuts. All right? And let me tell you this. If Donovan McNabb would have sided with T.O. on the whole contract situation, maybe their relationship could have been restored. But McNabb wasn't interested in doing that. And I gotta say, it's kind of funny how T.O. is now in the Hall of Fame while Donovan McNabb is still waiting his turn. I find that kind of ironic. But the point of this whole video is this. I don't have a problem with T.O. and where he's coming from because he has every right to hold on these kind of personal, grudges and personal resentment against the media for basically shitting on his entire football career. All right? Basically feeding into that so-called negative reputation based off of people that never achieved anything in their respective football careers. All right, T.O. should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, and there's no doubt of the career, achievements and the stats that he was able to produce throughout his entire career. Let me repeat it again: 5-time first team All-Pro, made to the Pro Bowl 6 times. He led the league in touchdowns for 3 years. All right, he's part of the All-Decade team for 2000, and he's in the San Francisco Football Hall of Fame. But more importantly, the bigger thing is this: when you look at his when you look at his career achievements, as I pull this up real quick, there you go. He's the 5th player to reach over 150 touchdowns. All right, he's the 3rd player to reach 150 touchdowns, 3rd player to receive over 15,000 receiving yards. And through his 15 seasons, he has a total of 156 career touchdowns, 15,934 receiving yards, 1,078 receptions. All right. He basically had and he had a stretch of 9 consecutive, had 9 1,000-yard seasons, including a 5-year stretch where he averaged about 1,000 yards per season. All right. This was a guy that literally set the bar for a lot of great wide receivers in this league. And you could basically put him there as third best wide receiver of all time behind Jerry Rice or Randy Moss, or you can basically play ring around the rosy with the 3. But those are the 3 great wide receivers that belong in that list. All right. T.O. wasn't always revering to a lot of people, but it didn't matter. It only matters what you can produce on the football field. And T.O. throughout his career, of all the teams that he played for, he always produced. He always showed up in the big games. He always wanted the ball when the game was on the line. All right. He always wanted that attention because he was never afraid of the spotlight. Not unlike a lot of other wide receivers in today's football. But the bottom line is T.O. has every right to feel this way, and I don't have a problem with him not visiting the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the reasons for those reasons that I just explained in this video. How is it that this guy who set all them records throughout his career didn't get into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? I mean, it's once again, it goes to show you how much favoritism and how much the media plays into the minds of these dumb casual fans. And a lot of these writers that have these procedures, positions of voting people in their Hall of Fame, listen, they don't deserve the opportunity to do that, because every time when they let their biases get into the way, you're affecting a lot of people's lives and a lot of people's belief of their careers and thinking that they didn't do enough in their respective times in the National Football League. All right. So that's just my 2 cents. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. And with that, I'm out. Peace.